Hello there, everybody. It's Jordan Reviews here, and today we're finally gonna rank all 20 MCU movies. Now, I was trying to make this closer to the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp, but then I was doing my Pixar ranking. I was trying to get like surveys done for the list, and I actually had to like change a lot of spots on my list quite a bit in order to like give you like not an accurate interpretation, but like so I could fix, adjust my list a little better. And yeah. No, I don't think this list will probably be very like controversial, just like my Pixar ranking video. but but this one is a little more closer to what fans say. There's just like there's one movie in particular that I'll talk about that I put lower than most people, and a few that I put higher than most people. You'll see what I mean when I go through my list. And I'm gonna do this similar to my Pixar video, because if you notice, I actually live stream this, and so what I'm gonna do is when people actually get into the live chat, I'm gonna allow them to like comment what they believe about the film, and then once I get to that specific movie, I'll like when I'm done talking about the movie at the ranking, I'm gonna have them. I might do like a little discussion with them. And one more thing is that this will probably be split in two parts, because I'm trying to do like a little survey, and plus I did the entire Pixar video in like one sitting, and my phone lost like so much battery doing it. So I'm probably gonna do like 10 and 10. Maybe I'll do like 12 and 8, depending on how it is, because as I get deeper into the list, just similar to what I was doing for the Pixar ranking, I'm gonna get very deep into the films that I talk about. So, yeah. Hello there, everyone. So, why don't we get started with our list? So, coming in at number 20, we have. Oh, and ignore any background noise that you hear. I'm sorry, guys. I don't intend that to be going on. I mean, I would do that, but my phone catches on, like, it gets super hot when I charge it and stuff, too. Hello there, Alex. Yeah. So, let's begin with our ranking. So, at number 20, I have The Incredible Hulk. Now, this is probably, well, this is easily the MCU movie that I've watched the least. I've only seen it once. I've actually seen many of these, not a lot of these, probably like a couple of them once, and this is not one that I really look at rewatching. I know that with certain films that that I haven't watched in a while, I feel I would like more in a rewatch. Honestly, Incredible Hulk, I paid very close attention to it, and I still think that even after rewatching it, it's still going to be the lowest on my list. Now, I do not dislike this movie. I give it like a 6 out of 10. I think it's just okay, you know. It's nothing great or anything, but at the same time, there's nothing really special to me about this film. The visuals are very subpar to the other films in the franchise. I think that also has to do with the fact that I think it was Universal that made this film. But even then, it's not really much of an excuse, because I know Sony did Homecoming, and you know that Sony sucks. So that makes no excuse for Universal to like not do that well with The Incredible Hulk. Now, if there's anything like memorable I'd say about the film, I'd say the cast, like Edward Norton, was pretty good. I mean, yeah, she never returns, but the person who played Betty Ross was pretty good, and General Ross was really good in this film, which I'm very surprised he's been showing up quite a bit in the MCU lately. And I'll admit that the final action scene was really cool. I mean, Hulk has definitely had better action later on, but, well, in my opinion, but it still had some pretty cool moments, like when Hulk had the cars for arms, and the Hulk smash part. Yeah, but in the end, it's just very forgettable to me. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm having trouble like remembering parts of the film, but there's just nothing good to remember in this film. It just feels very bland. And even then, most of the stuff in this film doesn't even carry on to the future films. Yeah, Tony Stark shows up at the end. Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to mention spoilers for all MCU movies here, because I'm going to when I get to Infinity War on my list, I'm going to be going full spoilers, including with Ant-Man and the Wasp. So if you haven't seen those, just click away. When I talk about them, that is. Yeah, yeah. But like Tony Stark showed up in the end. Edward Norton doesn't even return as Hulk. They get Mark Ruffalo to play him, and yeah, General Ross does appear in Civil War and Infinity War, but still. And then Betty Ross was replaced as a love interest by I guess kind of Black Widow. Yeah. So let me see what you guys said about the MCU, about this film. Yeah. Alex says he remember you find it very nostalgic, Alex. Raul, you found it very memorable. I mean, it's hard for me to find it memorable, at least for me. Yeah. I never actually saw the 2003 Hulk movie. I heard it was awful, though. Yeah. I saw parts of it, and the CGI on Hulk was horrible. Just horrible. And I never saw this film in theaters. In fact, I'm going to be talking about my experiences with these films in theaters a lot, because I did not grow up with the MCU. Like, I didn't start with Iron Man. I think my first MCU movie I saw in theaters was Iron Man 3, but my first, like, official, like, as a fan, was Doctor Strange, because I didn't get to see Civil War in theaters, but Civil War was the movie that really kicked off my fandom, I'd say. It's awful mainly because of the wacky scene transitions. Oof. That would... yeah, that's a film I do not want to watch. Alright, I think I spent a lot of time on Incredible Hulk, so let's move on to the next film. So coming in at number 19, I have Iron Man 2. So, a lot of people put Iron Man 2 at, like, always at the bottom. Like, this and the next movie I'm going to talk about on my list are always, like, the lowest at the MCU. Now, I wouldn't say that this film is the worst. In fact, I actually rather enjoy this film. It's much better than most people say it is. Like, people, like, trash on this for what it is. But, I mean, I actually really enjoy this film. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is great as usual as Tony Stark. He's just really good as in the role. He's perfect for Tony Stark. And this is the film that also introduced Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson was introduced. And then this is when Don Cheadle was replaced Terrence Howard as War Machine. That's also when War Machine actually came into the mix. I really enjoyed Don Cheadle. In fact, I think I need to rewatch the first Iron Man, but I think I enjoy Don Cheadle more than Terrence Howard. Then again, he's been in like multiple MCU movies lately. The visuals, for the most part, were really nice. The film had plenty of great action. Like, I really liked the action scene on that race car field with Tony and Whiplash. And then the final fight was pretty decent as well. And then, I guess this is also when S.H.I.E.L.D. was introduced, which was relatively nice. And just in general, the film had fun moments, I'll say. But my problems with the film are that the film is a bit sloppy with how much the film deals with. Like, there's a lot of subplots going on. Like, there's the one with Ivan Vanko trying to plot against Tony along with Justin Hammer. And then there's the one with where Tony was dying because his arc reactor was failing him. There's the one with Shield, the one with with them trying to bring Iron Man suits into the army. It's just a very crowded movie. Now, liking, and I have the same opinion with this that I do with Incredible Hulk, because I've seen this and Incredible Hulk only once, but I feel like even rewatching them, they won't get better for me. You know, and along with that, it's not very memorable to me. Yeah, there's those scenes I mentioned, and plus the visuals. While I did say that some of them were pretty nice, some of them were, I could tell that they were CGI heavy-ish. Like that final action scene with Tony, Rhodey, and Whiplash. I was able to tell that that was CG. And then I've never been a fan of like some of the side characters in the Iron Man franchise. Like I've never was a big fan of Pepper. I mean, she's she's like the only Phase 1 love interest that's still even around in these films. But I mean, that I respect her a little bit for that, for staying in despite that. Like, what was it? It was like 4 years where Gwyneth Paltrow didn't want to return at all until she just showed up at the end of Homecoming. Yeah. Besides that, not really. So, let me see what you guys say. But first MCU movie in theaters was the Avengers. I really wanted to see the Avengers, but I ended up seeing the Amazing Spider-Man and Dark Knight Rises instead, which obviously the Avengers is much better than that. But yeah, I really wanted to see it in theaters. You think Iron Man 2 was good? Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. Am I the only one who liked Ant-Man and the Wasp a lot more than the first one? I can't say anything yet because I don't want to spoil that spot on my list. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I had dang it, I can't read your entire comment. Had three problems with it. They reduced Iron Man into a clumsy buffoon. His new suit keeps malfunctioning for no reason, and the stupid arms dealer guy. Yeah, I mean, I still think it wasn't very good. Same with Iron Man 2. Low. Low, but decently enjoyable. 5 out of 10. I'd give it a low 7 out of 10. I mean, it's still nothing special, but I wouldn't consider it bad or anything. I enjoyed this film for what it was. No, it's okay, Alex. You could spoil it. I already mentioned that spoilers for Ant-Man and the Wasp and Infinity War. Just all the way. Yeah, because we're having a very long discussion here. So coming in at number 18, many people probably put it lower on the list. Thor: The Dark World. Thor: The Dark World is, in my opinion, not the most underrated, but like Iron Man 2, I feel like it's more hate than it deserves. I mean, it's okay, in my opinion. Now, I think one of the things that makes me like it more than Iron Man 2 is, I know it's silly, but I've actually seen this like 2.5 times, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Each time that I've seen it, but around the same amount of enjoyment, I'd say. Now, the number one problem I have with this film is the forgettableness. I mean, it's definitely not as bland as Hulk, but or as much as a mess as Iron Man 2, but it's just rather forgettable. And it's not so much that it's bland, it's just they just don't do a whole lot in this film. I mean, the memorable moments that they have in this film are basically anything with Thor and Loki together, along with Loki faking his death, the end fight, I guess kind of Jane getting possessed, and that's it. Like, I forgot that Thor's mom died until I remember someone talking about this film. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Maybe I'm just, maybe I just like it more because I'm just, I don't know why I like it more than the others. It's just, I mean, the visuals are absolutely phenomenal in this film, and Hiddleston and Hemsworth give great performances, and I really like their banter throughout the film. Natalie Portman gives a good performance, but Jane isn't really the most memorable character. I personally enjoyed Jane Foster much more in the first Thor movie when, yeah, I just thought her character was more memorable. In this film, she's just, I don't want to say a damsel in distress, but really she's just there with Thor the whole time, and nothing memorable happens with her. Then her friend Darcy can get annoying at times. Some of the other side characters are rather bland. No wonder why they got rid of them in Ragnarok. Yeah. And then what else? I guess that's it. I mean, I enjoy oh, and that's right. I forgot to mention the villains in this film. These three films have some of the worst MCU. Okay, Iron Man 2, I'd say Whiplash was an okay villain, but Abomination was horrible. Malekith was horrible. I don't I barely even remember them. Maybe I like Abomination more because of his action scene with Hulk, but Malekith has nothing memorable about him. Like, I can't even remember a single scene with him. Like, the most I could think of are when, just when the one scene I could think of that I remember with him in it are just the part where Thor threw his hammer at him and the hammer went straight through him. That's like the one scene I remember from him. Because even though I enjoyed the final action scene, there's not much to remember about it. Yeah. Right, let me see what you guys said about Thor: The Dark World. I'll talk about Civil War and Winter Soldier later. Hey, Walter. I'll see you next week. You don't like Thor: The Dark World at all? Just 2 out of 10. That's a little harsh. I mean, I give it a 7 because the visuals are nice, and Hiddleston and Hemsworth were really good in the role. Yeah, Hiddleston had some great scenes in this film. You enjoyed Thor 2, even though people hate it, though. Yeah, yeah. I think that's basically my opinion on it. Thor: The Dark World is also super yeah, it is very forgettable. Yeah. I'll talk about First Avenger later. Alright, let's move on. Number 17, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. At number 17, I have the first Iron Man. Now, before you go and push the dislike button 80 times, let me speak. Now, Iron Man 1, the first one, is one of the few movies that I haven't really watched much. In fact, I've only seen it once. And I feel I should rewatch it because, to be honest, I don't remember a lot from the movie, but from what I did remember, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I really like the scene with Tony in the cave, and the part with just all the Iron Man action scenes were really nice. Now, I remember like my main problem with the film was Jeff Bridges' character, Obadiah Stane. I wasn't a big fan of his character. I mean, I'd say he's better than Yellow Jacket, who was basically just a copy of him. But I wasn't a big fan of his character, to be honest. And kind of crazy at the end. And to be honest, it took a while. With the exception of Tony, I felt it took a while to really get into any of the characters in the film. I don't know why. It doesn't stand out to me compared to the other MCU films. At least for me. I mean, I still enjoy Iron Man, but it's a film that I really do need to rewatch. Although, something that I do want to praise this film for is Robert Downey Jr. I mean, even in his first film, he gave such a great performance, and it set up such a great, what's it called? Such a great story arc for his character. Wow, I'm gonna talk more about Tony as we get further down on the films, but yeah. Yeah, I agree. RDJ is the best part of Iron Man 1. You give it a 7, I'd give it an 8. I don't know why. I feel like I'm very nice to 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 film, you know. All right. I'm sorry I kind of went brief on Iron Man, but it's just I feel like there's not really much for me to talk about here. I mean, it's just a solid film and that's it. It's solid. I enjoyed it, but I feel like it doesn't go as deep as some of the other films on this list. Number 16, hey, Dragon Critic. Number 16 is also a little controversial because I'm putting this over the first Iron Man. I have Iron Man 3. Now, this is another case where I might put it a little higher if I rewatch it because thinking about it, it's a really good film. I feel people just hate on it because of the Mandarin twist. And while I am very disappointed by what they did with that twist, I I am I didn't hate the twist. And in general, I really like this film. Although to be fair, this isn't much an Iron Man movie, it's more a Tony Stark movie if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, it's more Tony Stark based. Like I feel like this really brings up a big story arc for Tony Stark with the I mean, I feel it very well goes into the Avengers in a way with how he's dealing with his PTSD of the battle. I thought that was a very brilliant way to bring the movie into. And like people say, it's definitely one of those action movies disguised I mean, Christmas movies that's disguised as an action film. So, I guess you could kind of say that this is kind of a Christmas movie in a way. The one Christmas movie in the MCU. Yeah. I really do like the I really do like Shane Black as a director. Now, this is the only film I've seen from Shane Black that I could think of. But I thought that the way he directed this film was very well done. I really liked the monologues. I shouldn't say monologues, but you know, the speeches given by Tony throughout the film. Like, we create our own demons. Like, yeah, I like those monologues that he made. And the visuals are definitely a step up from Iron Man 2. Some of the CGI looked rather bad. Now, while there are some bad CGI shots, I thought the CGI was much better in this film. The only parts I thought had bad CGI were the extremist parts. Like, they looked fake. Super fake. Yeah. And then, you know, the focus on Tony really brought in more of his character, and it made me fall more in love with his character. And RDJ, once again, great performance as Tony Stark. The kid, Riley, he was really good in this. I thought it brought a very nice, a very nice part. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, a very nice touched Tony's arc where he was able to just talk to the kid. And I think that might have a big role because I know he's scheduled for Avengers 4. And I remember Tony was talking about having kids with Pepper. So I think that might have a big role in Tony Stark's future. And then, despite what people say, the Mandarin twist was well done. I thought Ben Kingsley's performance as the fake Mandarin was really well done. Now, let me go more into negatives though. Well, actually, no. One more thing I want to mention is the action. The action was absolutely fantastic in this film. Say what you want about the movie, but the action was phenomenal. And RDJ was good in this. Those are the two things you could probably say about this film that are good. Now, my issues with the film. Despite what I said about the Mandarin twist and me liking Ben Kingsley's performance, you know, like once Tony realized that he was the fake Mandarin and how stupid he was. I did not like Killian as a villain. I thought he was a Syndrome ripoff, and really, he's disappointing as a villain. I mean, look at what the Mandarin was in the beginning. He had such an intimidating voice. He looked awesome. And I know in the comics, the Mandarin is such a good villain, where he has the 10 ring thing. But Killian is just such a step down from that. I mean, if the villain was as intimidating as Ben Kingsley's Mandarin was, then I would have been fine. But he wasn't. Killian was just felt like another villain that wanted to get revenge. I mean, yeah, that did happen with another movie that I'll talk about later. But at least there they but at least there the villain had more character. Killian barely even had a personality. And so it really brought the film down for me, in my opinion. That, and I mean, in the end, the story isn't the most complex. I've never been a big fan of the side characters in the Iron Man franchise. Like Pepper isn't very like. I mean, I'll give the movie credit for this. They do what's it called establish Pepper, and they show how important she is to Tony, which was a good touch. But to be honest, I never really cared for Pepper or Happy Hogan or I forgot the girl's name, but Tony's ex-girlfriend. Never really cared for them. Yeah. But by far what my probably my favorite line in the movie was I know I'm just jumping to positive, but there's a line in the movie at the end because I loved the end of the film. It really just showed that in the end Tony is more than Iron Man, and that nothing will stop him from being Iron Man. And a line that I really liked from him at the end was, "You could take my house, you could take my tricks and toys, but the one thing you can't take is I am Iron Man." I thought that was a well done line from RDJ. Very well done. Yeah. Let's see what you guys say about this. You have Iron Man 3, 8.5 out of 10. Okay. I'd probably give it an 8 as well. This is the first one that you give a better ranking than me. Never been a big fan of the first Iron Man. Yeah, same. While the twist brought the movie down, I still had a decent time with it. Gonna need to rewatch it. Yeah, I think that's also the same with me. I really want to rewatch this film along with the first Iron Man. I like that it's centered on Tony Stark. Got me from liking the character to love. I agree. That really brought the character up for me. But why on earth a door watch? I didn't even think Killian was a syndrome. He is kind of a syndrome knockoff, because if you go into the film at the very beginning, Tony Stark was supposed to meet up with him on the roof, but he completely forgot about him, and then in the end, he's revealed to be a villain that's trying to get revenge on Tony Stark for forgetting about him in the beginning, and then he's some super rich guy. He traps Tony in a place temporarily, but then he gets out. They have a big action scene, and he blows up. Yeah. I'd rather they have Rebuke from Evil Within as the villain. To be honest, I never played Evil Within. Yeah. But that's what I have to say about Iron Man 3. So number 15 is a film that should have been higher, but just couldn't but just the film didn't really work out, and it has to be this low. I have Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now, I used to like this movie less when I first watched it, but that was mostly just because I barely saw any films in the MCU, so I had like no idea what was going on. But rewatching it, I liked it a little more. It's still not the best in the MCU, but Age of Ultron is good for what it is, I'd say. Now, the problem with it though is that unlike the first Avengers movie, it goes for quantity over quality, which is not the best way to go with. Because, like Iron Man 2, this film has way too many subplots in this film. I mean, in Infinity War, yes, they had a lot of subplots as well, like Wakanda, I mean, like with Cap, the Guardi, most of the Guardians, Thor, Tony Stark, Thanos. But I thought it was put in a well done way to where it didn't feel like a drag going through. But here, I mean, I ended up feeling very like it felt very convoluted with how much this movie was trying to establish. I mean, you're trying to establish like a character arc for each character in a way. Like you have Tony dealing with the fact that he created Ultron. You have Thor trying to like study the Infinity Stones and such. You have the Maximoff twins working with Ultron. You have Ultron, and then there's probably more that I'm not even thinking of. I mean, I guess there's also Shield that's going through, but yeah, it's just very convoluted with how much this movie is trying to convey. Now, to be fair, something that I do really enjoy about this film is that, as it is an Avengers movie, you have the entire team here, and just the actors have really good chemistry with each other. So a lot of the jokes conveyed in the film are really well done. There's a lot of really funny scenes in this film, like Cap's language gag throughout the film is really funny, I'd say. And then the Hulkbuster and Hulk action scene was really awesome. And say what you say about the final battle, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah, it's another CGI monster battle that they're trying to fight where there's a bunch of like a disposable army that they have to fight of robots, but yeah. But then again, yeah, it just felt like another Battle of New York, except instead of New York, this is Sokovia. Ultron, at first as a villain, I didn't really like him, but rewatching the film, I liked him more as a character. He's still not the best MCU villain, and judging by what I've heard from him in the comics and in the trailers, he could have been a much better film. I mean, much better character, but instead they just made him a robot Tony Stark. Which, while he did have some funny scenes, he could have been much better. And I believe like this around this time was like the time where the only good MCU villains were like the ones that were in the Avengers films, and I guess Winter Soldier. Yeah, like Loki, Ultron, and I guess Winter Soldier. At this time, that was. Yeah, but yeah, this film could have been much better if it wasn't for the fact that they try to convey too much with this film. The visuals, for the most part, were still pretty good though. But oh, that's right. This also introduced Vision, Scarlet Witch. I'd say Quicksilver, but he dies, and they wasted him. Oh, that's something that I'm gonna be talking about a lot because there's some characters in these films that I felt were just wasted. Now, I wasn't as mad with Quicksilver because I wasn't very attached to his character, but they could have done much more with his character. It's probably just because they didn't want to pay Fox for using him. But Scarlet Witch has been such a great character ever since they introduced her. And Vision, I I find okay. I don't think he's the best, but I find him enjoyable. I really like him in this movie though. Yeah. But Scarlet Witch was really well done. And say what you want about Hawkeye, but I really liked Hawkeye in this film. I really liked the scene where he was trying to bring Wanda up, where he was saying, "If you walk out that room, you are an Avenger." I really like that part of the film. What'd you guys say? He said Ruvik is basically Freddy Krueger mixed with Sephiroth and Assassin's Creed. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. If Avengers had a longer running time in the first place and more time to introduce characters, yeah, I agree. Avengers 2 Age of Ultron would have been much better if it was as long as like Civil War or Infinity War. I think that's one of the things that made Infinity War much better because they made it so long. You put Age of Ultron at your number 14 and you give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'd say we're still at the 8 out of 10 for me, Mark. Hawkeye was awesome. Alright, so coming in at number 14, I have Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a really enjoyable film, in my opinion. It's very fun, has a lot of really great moments with the shrinking aspect. Just the idea of shrinking just has so many great ideas with it that they incorporate within this film. And it's one of the funniest MCU movies, in my opinion, as well. I find it like Luis is probably, in my opinion, one of the funniest MCU characters with his storytelling part. This film has one of the funniest Stan Lee cameos. That's right, I haven't even mentioned Stan Lee yet. And it's just overall just such a fun ride. I mean, the film isn't the most memorable, but when you do watch it, it's such a fun time. I've seen it like, I want to say it 1.5 times. And, what the times I've seen it, it was just tons of fun. And, but my problem with the, no, let's do negatives. My main problem with the film is the villain Yellow Jacket. Yellow Jacket is a character that I feel has an awesome design and awesome powers, but in the end, he's just another bland. He's another Malekith, and he's basically a ripoff of Obadiah Stane from the first Iron Man, where he's trying to team up to take over Hank Pym's stuff, and he does it by building a weapon that's just like Hank Pym's, which in this case is the Ant-Man suit, which I wasn't a big fan of. Now, I enjoy this film more than the first Iron Man because I find it more enjoyable with the jokes that they incorporate, and I do enjoy the action in this film more than in the first Iron Man, thanks to the shrinking mechanics and the Thomas the Train part. That was really funny. But yeah, so hopefully, now, judging by where I put this in the list, you know that I enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp a little more, because I feel like that film really incorporated the characters a little more. I wasn't a big fan of like Hope or Hank in this film. I mean, I enjoyed moments of them, but I felt Ant-Man and the Wasp was where I gotta get more close to them and enjoy their characters much better. But Luis, I mean, who doesn't like Luis? Luis is just hilarious in this film. Yeah. And in general, this film has like just some of the funniest lines in the MCU. Like, oh, Baskin Robbins always finds out. Yeah. And then the part where he was returning the Ant-Man suit and the cops just showed up and he's all like, "I'm not trying to steal anything. I'm just returning something that I stole." Oh, and the part where Ant-Man was fighting Falcon was hilarious. Like a lot of people didn't even know that that Falcon was in the movie. Yeah, Ant-Man is your number 8. You give it a 9 out of 10. I'm still at the 8 out of 10 mark. We'll get to the 9 out of 10 soon. I can't wait to talk about those. I agree. The worst part was the villain. The guy who tells the story was hilarious. I agree. I feel like this film could have been better if it wasn't for the fact that this film was going through so much uh like plot problems. Because I know that they had a fire. Was it? I know Edgar Wright was working on this film. I'm not sure if he quit or if he got fired. But because of that, I feel like Peyton Reed made this film so like very safe. Like it doesn't feel like empty like Solo, a Star Wars story, but you can still tell that this film isn't taking very many risks. Somehow that part made me crave ice cream from Baskin Robbins. Yeah, Baskin Robbins is a great ice cream place. Yeah. All right. So number 13 is a little bit of a controversial opinion of mine, but I really enjoy the first Thor movie. I used to put this like way up on the list. Like when Doctor Strange first came out, I believe I put this like at number 7 on my list, which is it was like number 6 or number 7, is which is crazy. But then obviously Phase 3 movies, the Phase 3 films have been absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. I just really enjoyed the first Thor movie, you know? The first time I watched it, I fell right in love with it, you know? I loved the character of Thor. At one point, he was my favorite superhero. I wouldn't say that anymore. My favorite heroes go to, well, we'll just talk about my favorite hero later on the list when we get to his film. But Chris Hemsworth, even though he's my least favorite of the three Chris's, I really enjoy him as Thor. And this really establishes like the big character arc that Thor goes on in the film. I really just enjoy his character with how he starts out as a arrogant bratty boy, but then he learns to love later on. It just I know it's a formulaic story, which is why I put it lower on my list. And yeah, it does. I mean, I can't judge it against Black Panther because the film is very similar to Black Panther. And yeah, I know it is slightly lazy with the fact that they went for another one of those fish out of water stories, but for this film, I thought it really worked. Like I really like the part where Thor was with Thor was with Jane and they were at that restaurant and then Thor just grabbed his mug and he finished it and he was like, I like this. And then he throws it in, breaks it down, and he says, I must have another. I really like that part. I know that kind of humor doesn't always work, but I really enjoyed the humor in this. Yeah. And like I said, the things that bring it down for me are just, I mean, the characters aren't the most memorable, and the story is rather formulaic. Those are really my main issues with the film. But I really do enjoy this film. And then this is also the film that introduced Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. Even though he's everyone's least favorite Avenger, I really like Hawkeye. It's just he's just the least favorite. Um, he's just the weakest Avenger because he's the Avenger that hasn't really had time to shine. I mean, he only has like one scene in this film. He he's mind wept by Loki throughout the majority of the Avengers film. And then Age of Ultron was where we got a shine and kind of Civil War, but he didn't have much. He only appeared for like 15 minutes in Civil War. Yeah. You give Thor a 5 out of 10. Yeah. You can see why I like it. Yeah. Thank you, though. I don't know why I like. I just. And then, oh, this is also the film that introduced Tom Hiddleston as Loki, which he's just, Loki. He's awesome in this film, and it really brings up the great story arc for Loki, in a way. I feel like they established it more in Thor: The Dark World, but in this film they still make him a very compelling film. I mean, a very compelling character as well. What else did I say? You remember the first Thor? I liked it at the time. I agree. I still like it. Those storylines I can find enjoyable. Yes. I also like the another scene. I never knew until Hawkeye until recently that Hawkeye appeared in the movie. Yeah. You like Hawkeye more than Black Widow. I mean, I like Black Widow a little more because she's gotten a shine much more than Hawkeye, but yeah, hopefully he'll have another chance in Avengers 4. That's right, he was cut completely out of Infinity War. That made me mad because Jeremy Renner is one of my favorite parts of the Mission Impossible franchise, and because of that, they had to cut him out of Fallout, which which made me think, all right, they better give Hawkeye a good role in Infinity War, and he has no scenes. That made me mad. I'm gonna get off now. I need to be. You need to be ready for something important. All right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for joining today. You don't hate Black Widow. Yeah. I don't hate Black Widow either. She's not my favorite character in the MCU. She's not even my favorite female character, to be honest. I like Scarlet Witch and Gamora much more than her. And maybe even Shuri. I don't know. Nah, not Shuri. But she's probably like third. Alright. So number 12, I have Ant-Man and the Wasp. So you guys were like just talking about it in the chat the whole time, where I was like, I want to make sure I talk about it when I get to the part on the list. And this is also the place where all movies that I talk about are 9 out of 10s and above. Now this is a little bit of a lower 9 out of 10 simply because this film is much safer. But at the same time, this film, along with its predecessor, aren't trying to be the best films in the MCU. You know, the Ant-Man and the Wasp is just really enjoyable. It has a lot of enjoyable scenes, and like the first film, it's really funny. Like, Luis's storytelling was hilarious in this film, with how he was talking about how he met Scott Lang and how he was doing now. That was hilarious. With how he meant it in an emotional standpoint than a physical standpoint. And this truth serum part was hilarious. And then Ghost was... I know I was talking about villains who were wasted. This is where I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. I feel like Ghost was one of those few characters that was slightly wasted. Not as wasted as another villain that I'm gonna talk about on the list, but I feel like she could have did a little more. I mean, I feel like she's more of a Caecilius, I'd say, which I'll talk about Caecilius when I start talking about Doctor Strange. I feel Caecilius was more of a character that was good. Like, he had good backstory, but they didn't incorporate it enough. I thought Wasp had really, not Wasp. Ghost had really good backstory, but they didn't incorporate it enough. I mean, they did it, but I feel like they incorporated her backstory in like one of the laziest ways ever. They just straight up showed they just straight up made her do a monologue that was kind of lazy. I mean, yeah. I mean, look at Thanos. They didn't even put his backstory in the film, but you understand where it came from. I felt like they should have did something more like that. Yes. But on the other hand, after watching A Funeral 2 months before this movie, which is a film that I don't think many of you have heard of, but I'll give you a hint. It's Infinity War. This film really brought back the lighthearted tone of the MCU, which I'm actually fine with. I really like the lighthearted MCU movies. Now, Pete and Reed is probably like one of my is probably not my favorite comedic director, but I still find him to work well with the team. And then I really like Hank Pym and Wasp in this movie. Wasp, I wasn't as big a fan of Wasp as most people were, but I thought she was still really good in this film. One of the things I really like about this and its predecessor is I really like the relationship between Scott Lang and his daughter. I feel like that's one of the things that in this superhero genre. I mean, that's one of the things in these films that really makes it unique from the other films. The fact that he has a daughter really brings up a lot of things, where Scott wants to do the right thing, but at the same time he wants to make sure he's home with his daughter. Yeah. And it's just in general, he's just a really good character, Scott Lang. Paul Rudd gives a really great performance. He's one of the most likable actors in the MCU. He's up there with RDJ and Chris Pratt as most likable actors in the MCU. But yeah, my problems are really just I felt like Ghost wasn't as developed as they could have made her, and that the film does have kind of a lot of villains too, like with Lawrence Fishburne's character, that one guy that keeps chasing them for the quantum realm stuff, and I guess the FBI. But I mean, I I can just ignore that and still think that this is a really fun movie, despite the problems that it does have. All right, but you get Black. We're not talking about Black Panther yet. Black Panther. This is your number two favorite. Oh, nice. And you give it a 10 out of 10, and you love Ghost as your second favorite villain. Ghost, I'd probably put in the top 10. I don't know where I'd put her yet. And so coming in at number 11 is another film very much like Thor that I enjoy much more than most people. Captain America: The First Avenger. Now I think that I put this much a little higher than most because something that I really like about this film and respect about it is that this is probably the very first. I know I said earlier Civil War was the one that kicked my fandom, but I need to be more honest. I think First Avenger was like the first MCU movie that I like started watching, like becoming a fan, and really just launched my fandom for for this franchise. Yes, like this film is what started me out as an MCU fan. And when I first watched it, I thought it was like my second favorite MCU movie behind Civil War, like way back then. Now, I've seen more MCU movies and I enjoy others now more than this. And that's why it's all the way to at 11. But I still really love this film. I really like Steve Rogers as a character. I finally get to talk about Chris Evans. I love Chris Evans as Cap. Cap is probably like my second favorite superhero behind another hero. It's a very controversial opinion who my number one is, but He's like my second favorite hero, I'd say. Maybe third. But I just feel Chris Evans gives such a great performance as him. And Steve Rogers has just been on such a great character arc. Like, now, the skinny Steve Rogers was very well done. It's a really amazing visual effect that I'm very surprised that they were able to incorporate. And then Steve Rogers really develops as this weak little guy to one of the strongest soldiers who's willing to risk his life for everything. The ending where he crashed into the ice was really amazing. Peggy Carter is definitely a love interest in the film that I like much more than freaking Jane and Pepper. And then Red Skull was such a great villain, I'd say. I mean, he doesn't have a lot to him, but I thought he really pulled it up in terms of intimidation, I'd say. And then, yes, of course, he did return in Infinity War. I really wanted him to be in that, and I'm glad he did. Despite how short his role was. I just really enjoyed this film. This also introduced Bucky Barnes, who has a much bigger role in the future of the MCU as the Winter Soldier. And yeah, this film just does so much for the MCU. Yeah. We've seen Ant-Man 2 twice. Cap 1 is, you give Cap, the first Avenger, a 6 or 7 out of 10. I just really enjoyed the first Avenger. Just, like I said, I enjoy it more than most people. Yeah. Now, I really want to talk about my number 10 and my number 9. But I think I'm going to have to... I'll do my number 10 right now. And I'll do the top 9 in part 2. Because this is pushing an hour long. So let's go into number 10. So at my number 10, I have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, like the others, I I used to put it like at number 5, my number 5 best. But then new films started coming in, and I ended up putting this film slightly lower than other films on the list. But I still really like Doctor Strange as a film, like the others. When I first saw this, and like I said earlier, I like with First Avenger, I have a lot of respect for Doctor Strange. This was the first MCU film I saw in theaters as an actual fan of the franchise. Now, I did see Iron Man 3 and, what's it called, Winter Soldier in theaters, but that didn't really boost my, like, fandom. I just went, just as a casual moviegoer with family that was, just with family. And Doctor Strange really, boosted it off for me. And I really like Doctor Strange. It's a lot of fun. Seeing it in the theater with the visuals was amazing. This film probably has some of the best visuals in the MCU. Top 3 for me. It's up there with Infinity War and Guardians Volume 2 as best visuals in the MCU. Easily. I was impressed by how much they were able to do with film throughout this film. And that's probably the best part about the film. The visuals are gorgeous. Yes. And then there was the introduction of Wong was really nice. Wong was a really funny character in this film. I really enjoyed Ancient One. She gave a really great performance as the character. Bordeaux, he'll probably do more in the future as a villain. Now, Caecilius is a villain that I felt had so much potential, but was wasted. He has, like, such a great backstory with how he's trying to bring the dark dimension into into the into Earth after he became seduced with the dark dimension after his wife passed away, and he wanted to try to bring her back. I thought that was such a great backstory, but it's just they wasted him as a villain. They just glossed over that. They give him like one monologue where he talks about stuff that happened to him in the past and about the Ancient One and how he is connected to her. But then they just glance over that and just ignore it for the rest of the film and just make him another one-off villain, which really disappoints me because he could have been one of the best MCU villains if they really went more in depth with him. Like, he could have been up there with like Thanos and Loki and Killmonger and stuff. But no, they had to make him much weaker and a one-off villain. Now, I will admit that I really did like his monologue with Doctor Strange, where he was talking about the dark dimension, but really that's not really much. And then that's probably my number one problem with the film: the villain, and also kind of the pacing, I'd say. I mean, yeah, it's a bit similar to Iron Man, where someone's like a jerk, but then they learn to like not be such a jerk. But I felt like this did it in a much different way than Iron Man, that it didn't feel like a ripoff. Oh, and plus they're both Sherlocks, so there's that. But let's ignore that fact. This film also incorporates it introduces magic into the MCU, which was really nice. Like I said, the pacing wasn't the best. Like, at one point, Doctor Strange is learning, but then he suddenly knows all this stuff with the magic stuff. Like, he could easily make portals now. Great. And he knows how to use the Eye of Agamotto better. Okay. Yeah. All those... Yeah, and plus, like, other than the characters that I kind of mentioned, like, Rachel McAdams' character, Christine, was was wasn't very interesting. I'm not even sure if, like, because she hasn't appeared ever since in the MCU. I'm wondering if she'll be in a Doctor Strange sequel or anything. Because she's never mentioned either. She has, like, 3 scenes in the entire film. No, like 4. The beginning, when Steven gets injured and he dumps her. Like, in the middle, when Steven got injured again while fighting that one dude. And then when Ancient One dies. Yeah. Which, Ancient One's death was actually rather emotional, I'd say. Because I wouldn't say it's, like, the most emotional. I'd say that goes to 2 movies that I'll mention later on the list. But yeah. I mean, one of the main problems I do have with the MCU films are that they don't want to kill their characters off. Now, that is a little different now, but at first they didn't want to kill their characters off. They just killed off, like, the mentor characters or just some side character that didn't really, that we never really got into. Yeah. But, but I want to mention this. Doctor Strange probably has one of the best third acts of any MCU film as well. The first 2 acts were just good, but the final act was just, wow. That was so good. Not only were the visuals, like, top-notch here, but the idea of fighting in a city in reverse was just amazing. And Dormammu, I really like the line, Dormammu, I've come to bargain. That was really awesome. Yeah. When's part 2? I'm gonna hopefully make part 2 come out on Monday. I'm hoping I'll make it come out. Maybe Friday morning if I have time. Yeah. Because I'm trying to do, like, this survey where for the MCU as well. Yeah. Give Doctor Strange an 8 out of 10. Alright. I'll do, like, a schedule where I'll write down when win so that you could join the stream on time. And I'll also subscribe to you and let you know when the. And then I'll comment on a video when I'm gonna stream soon. Got it. So, thank you for joining me, LW for the win. It was really fun discussing the MCU with you and while you were in the chat. Yeah, and I hope you come to the next stream so that we could talk more about because there are some MCU movies I really want to talk about that I haven't mentioned yet. So yeah. So thank you for watching, and I hope I see you guys in the next part. So goodbye.